House Oversight Committee is holding its first high-profile hearing on Hunter Biden.
Former Twitter executives told lawmakers that the company should have handled a New York Post story about the president's son's laptop differently. GOP lawmakers grilled the social media executives about Twitter's decision to temporarily suppress that story in 2020. A former senior lawyer at Twitter also testified there was no government involvement in that decision.
CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us now. Catherine, you've been following this very closely. As we mentioned, really the first high-profile hearing for House Republicans since winning the majority in the lower chamber. What's the main takeaway from the hearing so far from your point of view?
Well, Errol and Lana, if there's one main takeaway, there's this central idea or principle it seems that both Republicans and Democrats can agree on, which is that these private social media platforms really have tremendous power. They're places where political speech can grow and also where political violence can organize. And these private platforms make very private editorial decisions that can have a huge impact on the First Amendment, also American democracy. And a senior Democrat on the committee said it may require actually legislative action to address these issues.
And Catherine, we heard from the Twitter executives. They admitted to mishandling the laptop story. Let's listen to what they had to say.
In 2020, Twitter noticed activity related to the laptop that, at first glance, bore a lot of similarities to the 2016 Russian hack and leak operation targeting the DNC. And we had to decide what to do. And in that moment, with limited information, Twitter made a mistake.
So talk to us, Catherine, about why they say this story was mishandled, the decisions that they made, and why they regret those.
Well, the short answer, Lana, based on the testimony, is that they were operating under a cloud from 2016, where we saw election interference, especially using social media platforms to really weaponize propaganda by our adversaries, specifically in 2016, Russia. So they were operating under this cloud, and when the laptop came up, they themselves admit now it was a mistake the way they handled it, because they also testified that they had no outside confirmation that the laptop in some way qualified under this hacked materials policy, or that in some way the data was compromised.
It does seem, based on what we've laid out so far, that these executives were simply responding to external pressure in an inconsistent way. Let's show our viewers now what one of the former executives said about meeting with the FBI on this topic.
The meetings that I was a part of with the FBI were almost entirely and exclusively focused on malign foreign interference, so accounts being operated outside of the United States by other governments, not on the accounts of Americans.
So what do you say, Catherine? What were Republicans able to at least demonstrate today when it comes to government involvement or at least pressure on Twitter?
Well, Errol, as a starting point, malign foreign influence is the term that's used in intelligence and counterterrorism circles for information operations that are launched by our adversaries, so Russia, China, and Iran. What Republicans were able to show is that there was absolutely contact between the FBI and Twitter, but the witnesses testified that this had to do with these information operations rather than individual accounts, and that ultimately the decision was made by Twitter and there was not undue influence by the federal government. However, there was one exchange where emails were shown from, I think what most people know now as the Twitter files, requests from the Biden team to have a look at some individual accounts, and what the witness testified is that it had to do with some graphic material, apparently from the laptop. But the witnesses told Republicans, look, you may not like how we handled this, but we did get routinely requests from both political campaigns, from government entities, from outside entities when they see material that they think violates our policies. And ultimately, it's Twitter's decision how they handle it, which takes us back to that central idea at the beginning of our discussion, which is this acknowledgement of just how powerful these private social media platforms have become.
And it is shining a spotlight on the relationship between the government and these social networking sites, which are so powerful, and we rarely get to see how the two interact. Catherine Herridge, thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome.